order sought by Econet, and it was quite surprising. I had not included a lot of things in my presentation because I had assumed that the other two gentlemen were going to cover that issue. But that would bring me, I'm glad Bernard is here, Bernard Kofu, the criminal research according to Econet. Throughout the whole of this case, one word has been coming out: stolen documents. To me, if anyone says this is something to do with any documents being stolen, it's theft. And normally we all know what circumstances follow when anyone is accused of theft. Number one, I was expecting Econet to make a police report pertaining to theft. The theft, by nature of not being classified what kind of theft it was it a physical case where Bernard and his sidekicks went literally, broke windows, broke doors, and stole documents? It's a police case. Or is it a case of the cyber interception of documents, which, by the way, under the Interception of Communication Act, is a criminal case? Econet might have gone maybe to the High Court to seek through the police an order maybe to intercept communication between the source, which, by the way, was not done in both cases. And that automatically questions the issue of theft, because if it was theft, there is no way in any form of theft, whether is it physical or cyber, you can exclude the police. The police have to be involved in all cases. And in this case, we're not even going to be talking about a court order. We're going to be talking about how far have the police investigations gone in terms of this theft. You can look at the theft in any other way, but the bottom line is that whenever that word is mentioned, stolen documents, the police should be involved as not as an arresting authority, no, as an investigating authority. All that did not happen, and what we saw is the order which was granted. I want to come back to an issue of an ex parte chamber application, because my other issue was when, if there's an order granted, I then said, what was the response of the source? If you have an order granted and the source has responded, what then does it mean to the appeal or the response of the source? I checked with a few comrades on what an ex parte chamber application is. They say it's applicable. You can do an ex parte chamber application if you are afraid that if the other party is invited to make their presentation and it goes to court, they might hide documents that the applicant is seeking. So you might have an ex parte chamber application where the applicant, the respondent, is not even notified. But I will then come up to the issue of tactics that are used. When you have that happening, it is the police purely who then execute that order. Purely, it is the police. But what we saw from what happened at the source offices, I think these are Gestapo type of tactics, where you have the police as the authority and other people coming to effect an order. And in this case, Econet and its so-called expert, I think it's a barbaric move, and I think in this country it's quite unprecedented that you can have such a scenario obtaining. And it's something that is quite worrying, especially to the profession of journalism. I'll come up to the issues in terms of maybe on how in future what could be done in maybe to just protect the profession and the personnel who work in the media houses. But I want to come back legalistically. I'm not a lawyer, but legalistically, I know that the source did file a constitutional application, a constitutional court challenge based on the constitution of the country, where they were saying, look, one is the ex parte application was granted, but there are other constitutional issues that have been violated. It would be ultra-vires for any court to order that kind of execution and ignore Section 61 of the Constitution. I want to come maybe to the rights enjoyed, because the argument, I read the Stuart Peck Econet statement, and what they were talking about is the right, what they call the client confidentiality clauses in banking. I want to talk about rights, what your constitution says about rights, and I'm going to go to section 86, which it talks about enjoying your rights while observing rights of others. This is a section on limitations of rights and freedoms. Section 861 says, the fundamental rights or freedoms set out in the Constitution must be exercised reasonably and with due regard for the rights and freedoms of other persons. And in this case, I would say, while this Econet spoke about their right to protect client confidentiality, there is section 61 2 of the Constitution, which speaks to issues of access to information and freedom of expression. And section 61 part 2 talks about the protection of journalism sources. It is clear that journalism sources should be protected at all costs. And we have a scenario here where you have two rights clashing against each other. The courts, in my belief, might have erred where they gave the other the right above the other. When we have a clash of that, it therefore becomes a constitutional case, because the only other right that overrides all other rights is the right to life. So this is a case why this was inherent for this order to be withheld while this constitutional application that was filed by the source to be heard. And it's a very serious issue, because one of the part of judgment also calls on the source to delete. Was it the source which was supposed to delete, or in order for the deletion of the articles that had been written? It's uncalled for. Why is it uncalled for? For starters, the court application was not about content. If you are arguing that the story written was as a result of the stolen document, are you also saying that the contents of the document is also questionable? Because the story, as the source published it, they published it from an informed point of view that their story was correct. But I also want to talk about the issue of accessing documents in journalism. There's the use of the word stolen, which I greatly had problems too, that I have already alluded to. But in terms of in journalistic work, documents can be accessed in any other way as long as it's not criminal. And leaked documents, by the way, are not criminally obtained. Those are leaked documents. That is why maybe we have not, ZANU-PF questioned the Independent over its leaked stories where they write about the political minutes on a daily basis. These are leaked documents. And on that basis, I think the order which was granted under the first issue, where the respondents were ordered to immediately delete and expunge the two articles that had been written, is out of context in this case, because the merits of the case were looking at the documents. Well, there could be other arguments that could be averred to that effect. I mentioned I'm not a lawyer. But my other issue I want to talk about, after having spoken about all this, and my bottom line hangs on the fact that with the issue that the source had filed a constitutional application to challenge the denial of one right in terms of the freedoms as set out in the Constitution, does not give the right that Econet forwarded of client confidentiality above the right to freedom of expression and the protection of journalistic sources, which also is now a constitutional right as espoused in Section 61 2 of the Constitution. So these are some of the issues that I feel critically should form the basis of not having executed that order based on that constitutional challenge, which, by the way, is a very serious merit when compared to both rights. There are many rights that people should enjoy, but as already indicated, that there is no other right which is more powerful than any other right, except the right I mentioned. The right to life is above all the other rights. And the Econet's right to say they want the issue of clientele confidentiality protected also is overridden by the fact that in journalism you cannot reveal your sources. Your protection of sources is enshrined in your courts. And not only in the court, the Constitution talks about that specifically in Section 61 2. I want to talk about something that maybe Chris will speak to. Sometimes these orders, you will get them coming. I'm sure the powerful organizations that would not want you to write stories about them would follow this example. I'm sure some of them might not have been aware of the ex parte. Econet has made them aware. They will do that more frequently. And sometimes it is very important to just ignore these orders and to do what is appropriate. My first issue that maybe I would want to come to especially basing on whether the media organizations comply. Someone asked a question, someone was asking a question, did they find anything on the computers? I think Bernard you might tell us. But if they did, especially I have an idea that these are documents which were sourced from the normal way we source. And by the way, if any of the sources is named, number one, obviously they'll be fired. And Econet will have them arrested actually for violation of now we're talk about clientele confidentiality. What called the internal confidentiality? The confidentiality clauses in all employment contracts. They will fire them and they have them arrested if they did find where they're coming from. But this is where now our protection of sources does not now only become verbal, where you are being tortured and asked. The security, the digital security that we have, and the physical barriers that we need to put in place. My first issue is the digital protection of information. Most of you, Chris will talk about this, most of you have passwords to your computers. You just put your passwords in, then you think you're done. They can be bypassed by any amateur in ICTs, can bypass the normal passwords that we have. But you need to have protection. Chris will talk about this, where you have even codes for all your files and individual files that are protected. You have zips for them, so that if anyone, even if they can bypass you can give them penalty. You should have given them all your computers and say no, we even have some at home and give them. But what that will do, you need to have also your own security. This is an issue we need to deal with, especially with editors. We have got lots of emails from people giving them story ideas. Could you imagine if anyone goes to, let me pick any edit, Telegrama's laptop and it's unsecured? Could you imagine the sources who give you stories and you leave them just like that because you are not digital compatible? Please will speak to that. The issue of protecting your information. How do you protect your information? Protection of sources also. Because if you are putting your codes and other stuff to protect your zips, what do you call your other things? This is many things where you create files, or some of you have gone for the trainings, where you create files for individual. One file has 2-3 codes for you to access it. Because you classify your information. You can leave the others unsecured, but you need to secure the others. My first question when I heard that the police came was, who opened the door for them? The issue of barriers. I know Reuters is, but you can refuse to open to them. You say, no, never kids are so you can say whatever. So the issues, the physical barriers. Because I can bet you the ex parte will be applied frequently, more frequently. Sometimes having your newsroom look like jails helps. including the media center here. A madman will walk up here. Some of you write stories, they will know it too. They will walk up here and beat you Taga. If they don't kill you, remember they won't kill you. They might beat you Taga. So it's important to have all systems. Chris will talk about the digital security, but how about the other security? My concern was, I saw the picture. I was out of town, I just did see a few pictures of these people searching. Well, if it was a court order where you did not defend yourself, why do you open the doors for them? And if we manage get up, they will break down the doors. Let them do it. But you need to have your security. Sometimes it helps you to get organized while it's there at the door. You can get organized. My main one, which is a question asked by a comrade, did they get anything? I'll be very worried if they did. Considering the trail from the 16th to the 20th, I'll be very worried. But it's just one issue I would want to talk about in terms of the digital security that you need to really take it very seriously. It's a serious issue. Apart from protecting your sources, it also protects you. Even your phones. I know some of you, these days you are linking your phones to your laptops, to your computers, but you only protect your laptop. How about your phone? How about the main computer? The same systems you put in should be applicable. I think it's a learning curve, but I think what the source issue does, it talks about issues of being prepared for some of these things. I know a lot of news organizations will expect the general court application where they want you to defend, but be prepared. Any story that is not a PR stunt would revoke similar reactions from people who are not happy about what they're doing, depending on how powerful they are or how much influence they have. They will use the expert to deal with you. So I think it's an issue that should create an awareness in the media, and you need to prepare accordingly. You won't know when that will happen. I know a lot of newsrooms have these security places open, by the way, and you wonder why they are there in the second place. So I think it's a big challenge. This is an issue which has happened, and I'm sure the source has helped a lot of people to reflect inwardly in terms of what mechanisms they need to put in place when that happens. I think I'll end here and maybe hand over to Mr. Musozi.
Thank you, Mr. Tulu, for that presentation. You talked about a lot of things, but I will not summarize them. I will wait for you to ask him questions. We hand over to Mr. Msoza, who is an ICT expert. As Mr. Tulu has already alluded to, we've already seen, I think a month ago, we saw journalists being asked by security agents at the airport to hand over their cameras so that pictures would be deleted of the president falling. So these threats of powerful people trying to seize gadgets of journalists is a real issue to be concerned about. And we'll leave Mr. Msoza to tell us more about it.
Thank you. Now I talk about a subject that I'm very familiar with, instead of the statement that I was reading, the timeline, the legal aspects that, the legal timeline that Chris McKay had given earlier on. There are two things here. Here we've got an entity that owns a bank, and it's also a telecoms provider, the biggest in the country. It's a company that was licensed to deal with the public, to handle public funds, to handle public data, to be able to put infrastructure that the public is going to use. So we've got a public entity that has a public role entrusted in it, and it must have systems that are there to protect the public and to protect its clients. So therefore we can look at it in a way of a public service provider, so to speak. And when a public service provider does things like this, it gets me worried, it gets me very concerned. I get to wonder whether they are reading my SMS messages, what are they doing with the emails that I'm transferring through their services. I think almost every Zimbabwean, one way or the other, is affected. Whether you have a net one line, you're going to have to phone an Econet line. So that's the kind of responsibility that Econet has. And as a banker, to have information like this leak is not very good for the image of the bank. I think this is why they are reacting in this manner. That's where they failed. They failed to protect their clients' information, and this is how they are reacting. And that's very regrettable. I have concerns. Well, the judgment has been issued, and there's an order to allow IT specialists from the company, in the company of the sheriff, of course, to go through computer systems, to go through documents. When you're going through documents, when you're going through computer systems, you're going to come across every information that's on the computer. You're going to go through documents, you're going to go through other information that is not relevant to what you're looking for. And in this case, the court did not protect other people who are in other information that the source has. In granting this order, they exposed everything that the source had and these reporters had. Because you're not going to say, no, don't look there, look only at this. It was a general order that says, look at computer systems, look at documents and find this. Even if it's a single page that has a list of names, the other names are not protected. Because you're going through all these names until you get to the source. So I would imagine the source has its own budget, has its own financial statements. I would imagine the source has other stories that are yet to be published on their computers. I would imagine the source has other files that are of a personal nature belonging to the person who has the computers that are being searched. And all that has been violated. I don't know if you can see the gravity of the implications of such a judgment. Talking about digital security. I'll quickly touch on what we need to do. But I want to take this stance to say that I'm not saying we should be anti-law. I'm not saying that we should be anti what the law states, but we should be able to protect our clients. Because I can guarantee you, if you're going to deal with companies of the magnitude of Econet, other companies will not seek a court order. They will use other means to get information about your sources. You visit public places, we go to beer halls. If you leave your phone, you drop your phone. There's all the information, it has all the contents that are there. If they are not protected, your source is exposed. So our information is vulnerable in so many ways. First, it's vulnerable where it's stored on the computers as journalists. If the computers are taken, whether there's a court order or there's no court order, is it possible for someone to get easy access to those documents? That's the first question that we need to ask. And one of the things, and my first intervention method is for us to look up encryption of files on computers. There's a free program that is called TrueCrypt. You might want to research about it. TrueCrypt, it provides simple encryption on your computers, and you can even use hidden folders on your computers. But however, now this information is going to have to be transmitted through a service provider like Econet. And as it is being transmitted, it's also vulnerable to attacks, to hackers, as it is being transmitted. And as it is being transmitted, it's going to be stored on servers. So there's also what we call PGP, email encryption. If you want to look that up, email encryption, no one will be able to read anything except you and the recipient. That is, if you're communicating with the recipient using PGP encryption, both of you are going to exchange keys at different ends. A key which the provider, whether you're using Gmail, whether you're using Yahoo, whether you're using Telecel, Net1, Econet for your emails, it's only the respondent and the sender that is going to get the key for such things. So as journalists, we should be aware of this, and I think it's very important that we realize that the minute we begin to write stories that affect people of influence, be it politicians, that affect people of influence, be it government or arms or even public companies, our information is going to be vulnerable. But remember my disclaimer, I'm not saying that we should do these things to hide from law enforcement agents, but we should do these things just to keep our information secure from illegal access. I hope you are getting my disclaimer here, because I wouldn't want a situation whereby I'm quoted as saying that this is how you hide from law enforcement. But I'm just saying from illegal access from your computers, because people who want that information, we have many enemies the minute we write stories. Stories of this magnitude. Okay. Right. Just to comment on Econet's side, we all have Econet. They're a public provider. They've been they have the 3G, 4G innovation. We all have it, but they need to move a step further so that we have confidence that the service that we're using from them, the service that they're licensed to provide. For me, it means a great deal if I know that they have my back in terms of securing my information. I'm saying this because I'm conscious of controversial bills which are an infringement of the Constitution, like the Interception of Communication Act, which is a direct infringement of Article 57 of the Constitution, which talks about the right to privacy and the right to have, not to have my communication directly infringed upon. I'm saying that with that consciousness, to say that I should be able to say, okay, Econet is going to wait to see that there's due diligence before they grant any order that is that they're given by people who might want to see my information. So that is where my concern really is. And as civic society, I think we should also learn from this and be able, I'm calling upon also VMCZ, the Voluntary Media Council, Media Center, the Media Institute of South Africa, to be able to avail access to these resources, and even our institutions of learning, to include curricula on digital security, because that's the future. The future journalists, or the journalists of the 21st century, cannot afford not to know the basic tenets of digital security. Password protection, encryption, the few things that I was talking about are basics. And how you keep your phone, because with your phone, you're accessing your email, you're accessing all your social media. And just by accessing your phone, I've got everything. And that can be dangerous. So I think that should be included in part of our curriculum, part of the programs that many of these organizations that support journalist work, they should look at digital security and look at how do we respond to such court orders when they come, or breaches, communication breaches that can come. It's a reality. Trust me, in the world that I live in, hacking, illegal access to information is a reality. And the person who has the right resources, like Econet, can afford such services if they deem it necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Mshota, for your presentation. I'll ask to take questions from that you may have. The panelists will take three, they respond, and then we take another round of three. Is there anyone with a question or comment?
From the source, actually, I cannot speak. But maybe, I don't know, what did I want to ask? Yeah, okay, maybe a disclaimer first. Please do not quote me in the statements that I'm about to say. It's got nothing to do with what's going on. As you know, there's a court judgment, court case that has not yet been concluded. So it's quite difficult for us to say anything. But I'm just speaking from a perspective of an ordinary citizen or journalist. What I wanted to say is there's a course we attended in Joburg last year, whereby we were also taught how to protect documents, and I thought probably I could share it with my colleagues here. You were talking about the protection of passwords on laptops and stuff. There's also another means which is very rudimentary, and I think most of us could also use that, whereby you don't communicate with your source through the email or the phone. And we were given an example. There was this journalist, I think it's from Sweden, I can't remember the country. He works for the radio there. What he did, somebody just came and said, I've got something for you. And then this person said, meet me at such and such a place. And then they vanished. And he was given a specific time to be there. And he told us about the hassles he went through, the traffic, and he had to cycle to that place. It was a bar. And he had also run out of time. And by the time he got there, he was actually fearing that the source had actually gone. And luckily the source was still there. So he got some documents. It was a very big government, it was a big case involving the government and arms deal and stuff. I can't remember the specifics because I didn't prepare for this. So anyway, he got the documents. And what he was now teaching us about the documents, and then he did a big story. It was quite big and it had an impact. But what he was actually saying was, when you get such documents, do not take them home. Do not take them to the office. Find a storage space somewhere. In Zimbabwe, maybe we talk of a PO box or some very secretive place where you can lock your information and you know it's safe. Such that even if these people come after you, they can go to your office, they can go to your computer, they can go home, but they will not find them. And you should also keep the documents, not with a person probably they can also go after, like your wife or somebody related to. Somewhere completely out where they'll probably, even if it means digging the documents under the ground. He was talking about all sorts of suggestions. So I thought probably I would share that with my colleagues, that it's not only about the email. At times it's just important not to have any trail on your internet, because as layers we are, at times you don't even know how to protect your phone, how to protect your laptop. Like myself, I thought a password would be enough, but if it can be surpassed, then there are also other means, like just having hard copy documents. And
yeah, thank you very much for that. Because digital security is not only something that I can say, do A, B, C, D, and that's it. It's a culture thing. It's how you're going to keep your phone and what you're going to post on Facebook. If you're going to say, now I'm in Aratambo, now I'm going to this place, to Mutare, and so forth, it's going to raise eyebrows. So it's a culture of how you're going to conduct your activities. By the way, do you know that a person can tell your location if you're access your equipment just by you switching on your mobile phone? You've registered your mobile phone. There's what they call triangulation and pinging that can locate you on your phone. And we're still, if you are being tracked, if you are in one room like this, they can tell that there's something happening. How come we have so many journalists in one place? That is with the right equipment, with the right technology. You can tell by virtue of having your phones. And let me just put it a notch higher. If you've realized, if you've noticed, your phone alarm can work even if your phone is off. So this means that even if your phone is off, it could be on, communicating to a base station, and your location information can be found. So the best way sometimes is to remove your battery. And unfortunately, if you have an iPhone like me, you can't remove your battery. So maybe it's leaving the phone behind. I'm just trying to give you just some of the things that we talk about when you talk about digital security. So it becomes a whole culture of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not very conversant with the problem. But I wanted to try and establish if it's at one level or at multiple levels. Because there is an issue of the order which was granted. Did they err in granting that particular order, or the order was in court, in order? Or is it the execution of the order itself that maybe the people involved were not the right persons and stuff like that? Or maybe at the third level, where we are saying the process of now going to the premise with the lead being Econet is the one which was defective. So I wanted to establish at which stage, as the media, do we have a serious problem with the whole array of issues that took place, at least from the timeline that he gave. Is it the order which was wrong, or the way in which it was executed?
I think if you look at the challenge we have, if you followed what I was doing, I just classed everything together, because I was looking at a whole gamut of the whole problem. But if you classify it, it's sectorial. It's according to the. For starters, there's nothing wrong with that order being given if it was an ex parte chamber application, of which we have established it was. There was no need to talk to the source on the basis that it was an ex parte. And there are reasons why they don't want to talk to the source, because these people were seeking for information which, if the source knew they were looking for it, they will go and hide it. So as an ex parte chamber application, nothing wrong with that order. But where now we have a challenge is where we look at other processes that have happened. Like, for example, the source, based on the ex parte, and noticing that they can't do anything, they challenge that in the High Court, and the High Court ignores that, which might be justified. They then do a constitutional application, which is valid. The courts have to hear that, and that order can be not decided, but it can be withheld until that case is heard. And if the source fails at the constitutional court, then you have a challenge. There's the issue of rights. I looked at the Econet statement. I looked at what they were the relief they were seeking pertaining to client and what to client confidentiality, the bank-client relationship. But it's a right which they are clamoring for in court. But there is a violation that happens when they effect that order, which is the right of the newspaper to protect its clients, its sources, as enshrined in the Constitution. I want to come back to the Constitution. Now, if you're looking at an act, if it were in the past, we're looking at IPA, which did not have protection of sources. But now it's a constitutional provision under Section 61, Part 2, which talks specifically about issues of protection of what? Of sources. You can take it to the next level that Chris is talking about. To say, look, it's a journalistic thing to protect your sources. How do you protect them? You protect them by word of mouth or by principle and end them. What security measures did the comrades put? This is why we are now looking at it from a different sector. We've now forgotten about this order. The order has been granted. It has gone on. It has been challenged. Nothing has happened. And now we're now looking at the reality. What are the security measures you are putting to protect your own sources? So you can look at it from a different sectors. I think from a three-dimensional point of view, you can look at the order being granted. There's nothing wrong with the order. People were speaking about that justice. No. This was not an ordinary High Court application. If it was ex parte, no. He was right in granting that order in the way he granted it. Maybe you might have contentions to say, okay, fine. Well, this we are asking him, because the reason why I wanted Chris to read, first of all, the relief that Econet wanted. They wanted unlimited access to all the information held by the source pertaining to their case. But how then do you look at a file which has got 10,000 files and you want to pick one without looking at all the other? You are also infringing the media's right to protect its sources, because you're looking at all the documents. If you're going to look at all emails, you're going to look at all emails which were sent to Bernard when his account opened, including all other sources who have given him stories not pertaining to your own story. You see the kind of rights that have been violated when they're trying to justify your own right of client and what and bank confidentiality. So it's an issue that you have to look at from different perspectives. Fine, it's judgment. The judgment is okay as it is. But what does judgment does? The judgment is ultra vires the Constitution, which makes it unconstitutional.
Just to comment, according to Chris Mike, he says there was a notice of set down from the High Court at 11 a.m. on 16 March, and they attended, they responded at 2:15, and they were not allowed in. Then when they were allowed in, they were told about this judgment that was going to be. So according to Chris Mike, would argue that the ruling was unjustified. That's their side of the story. I'm not an expert in this. I just thought I would shed light into what Chris Mike said in his timeline. But however, I agree with him in terms of the implications of such a court ruling violates other sections of the Constitution, because it's a blanket statement saying access all computers, look for this information and find it.
Mr. Chris, what is the, how do you conceptualize the problem? What is the problem? I've not seen all the people who have spoken about this issue in the media, or what really is the problem that you are talking about, given this source issue. For me, firstly, you see the rise of corporate interests, that the freedom of expression is only threatened by governments, as is normally the case. True. Yeah. As you can see, even where you see crisis of journalism, you look at the 2010 Justice Leveson inquiry into the crisis of British media. The problem was corporate bodies, yes, and the rise of corporate interests. Yes. So freedom of expression is not necessarily threatened by the green bombers or the riot police or the say, oh no, yeah, but those with money and those with access to power. Yes. But the major problem for me on this issue is about media regulation in this country. How are those rights that you are talking about in Section 61(2) protected in terms of how the media operates on a daily basis? What are the media regulation safeguards for the practice of journalism is the question. That is the problem. Not about inscription you are talking about, Mr. Chris, because if you write police or those guys at Federal Police beat you up, you will give them the password. So the problem lies in the regulation. How is the media regulated in Zimbabwe? Is the question. For instance, how do lawyers go about doing their business? If lawyers go about doing their business, can they be subjected to what journalists were subjected to the source? Why? Because there is a clear co-regulation, a framework that governs the practice of lawyers or the legal fraternity. In Zimbabwe, the legal framework, the regulation of the media, yes, in this country is contested. If you look at ZMC, the Zimbabwe Media Commission, it's just statutory regulation without co-regulation. What are co-regulation? I call co-regulation, if you look at how accountants operate. There is an accountants act that safeguard the operations of accountants. It's lawful, but it does not have the state. You have the legal, the Law Society of Zimbabwe. It's regulated by law, but the state does not intervene. There's an act. But the problem with journalists in this country is that we think, or they think, that wherever there is law, there is the state. There may not be the state, but you can have a media regulatory framework that is legally binding, that is statutory, made in terms of an act of parliament, without the interference of the state. And what you are facing is purely a question of failure of the regulatory framework to protect the opinions of the journalists.
I think Wanya is alright, but where I would differ with him marginally is that the law in this country has never been. They're talking about the lawyers. Lawyers have been beaten. They are just beaten, thumped up by the police, but they have laws that protect them under law society. So it's an issue of, if you talk about the way the media operates, on the Interception of Communication Act, what he's talking about, there is a provision on how you can access information. But in this country, as you rightfully diverge from it, it's not the law that matters. We have a lot of laws that if you could apply and say they can protect journalists, but the law enforcement can go ahead and do what they want. You talk about the corporates. Yes, exactly. This is an act of the powerful subverting any other processes to get their way. And it happens. You speak about the Levies inquiry into the hacking or in the British media. It's exactly the same thing. You have the laws, but nothing happens. It's how they are applied, who decides to apply on that case. We're even sitting here debating whether the judge was right. There was not even a need to even question the judge's order if it had been looked in all. The issue that we're now talking about, these constitutional issues, is that the judge did not pay due diligence to that. But they have laws as judges that they should see that whatever judgments and orders they are passing protects the rights of other people. But they didn't do that. But the laws are there. They are clear that if any issue is ultra via the Constitution, it falls away.
But do you know why, Mr. Due, why in that case the judge presided over that case? freedom of expression is not a use cogence. It's not a preemptive norm of international law. Unlike here, even in Zimbabwe, the issue of torture. The Constitution of the Republic, as a matter of state practice, it's not allowed to torture. It's generally acceptable that you should not torture. Even the right to death, you were talking about the right to life. It has exceptions. It's not a use cogence, no. It's not a blanket. So freedom of expression actually also has its limitation in terms of the Constitution. If you read the Constitution, it will tell that it is limited in 1, 2, 3. But the question is, are the limitations justifiable in a democratic society? But it's now a debate.
With the examples you have given, I then therefore say there's no need for us to ponder a lot about these laws because that is disregarded as we are giving all these examples.
No, but the issue is you must have a baseline. You must have a baseline, a starting point to say even though, because it's not a permanent feature. Lawlessness is not a permanent feature of society. The idea that will be lawlessness under a particular regime, there could be another regime which says we want the rule of law. So let's have the basics, and the basics is to have a proper media regulatory framework that we can say this is what is permissible and this is not what is good. So we can use it for purposes of advocacy when you have issues of this nature.
So you are saying we don't have any regulation. What do you call?
No, it's weak. The ZMC is not. It's purely statutory. It serves the interests of government. If you look, for instance, the Legal Practitioners Act, the fundamental principle and interest that the Legal Practitioners Act protects are the interests of the lawyers. So you need to have a regulatory framework that has a principal idea and framework to protect the interests of the journalists and the journalist fraternity. We can have other issues, but what is the primary concern? What is the primary idea behind the law? Legal Practitioners Act, the Accountants Act, it protects that profession. The ZMC protects the interests of government, the government of the day. That's why the ZMC is a useless body. Because it does not put the interests of the journalists on the forefront.
How about the voluntary media councils?
It has not.
Was it
So it can talk, but it cannot implement the ideal decisions that it wants. I think that is the weakness, but it's a better institution than ZMC. Because it is voluntary media council does not harm anyone. ZMC actually harms. If you look at that structure, voluntary media council is good because it talks about the ideal and it does not harm anyone. It protects best practices. So the voluntary media council is good, although it does not have teeth, but it does not harm anyone. ZMC harms.
Thank you very much. I like it, the fact that whenever you deal with members of the public, they never to speak about it. The journalists are the ones who talk about it. So they want more teeth to bite them, which is quite interesting. We've never had this debate with most of members of the public who have had, but the debate on the VMCZ having teeth comes from the journalists themselves, which always leaves you.
Yeah, because you need to deal with the rogueness even among yourselves.
That's true. But maybe critically important, I want to maybe mention something that I did not mention in my presentation. I think in all of this, something that came out to me throughout the week when I was just reading the events that happened, I think one thing we should not ignore, which I would belabor for a long time, is the issue of the solidarity that the comrades showed. I was surprised. Actually, I was very surprised that journalists agreed with each other for the first time. I was very shocked. I was very, very shocked. And people spoke with one voice. I read the comment in the Chronicle on Friday, and I think the Sunday News also has a comment about this Econet saga. It's considering who is involved. I think I want to comment the comrades. I think this solidarity, we need to take it to all levels where we interact. Mr. Buwani, I think even when we're dealing with issues of media regulation, people should come out and say, no, look, this is what we want to stand for. And I want to be honest. I was very shocked. I actually phoned 3 comrades and said, my journalists, I actually maybe my first question was, which journalists were these? Because I know it was, but someone said to me, no, it was across the spectrum, which surprised. I was very surprised. I want to express my shock. I want to call it horror and the honor to the journalists who did what they did. And I think it's quite commendable, and I think we need to take that solidarity. And even including, I notice the stories are coming out against, not necessarily against Econet, but just to show that people will not be bullied by the big corporates. I think it's commendable.
I will take 2 more questions, one from Jonas.
Mine is actually not a question, but just a comment. Chris spoke about the issue of cyber security, of which I've realized quite a number of my colleagues within the fraternity are not conscious of. You find that the reason why when you go to USA, UK, Australia and so forth, most journalists are using iPhone, Samsung and even MacBook Pros or MacBook is because you can install certain security features easily on those gadgets as compared to any other gadget like HP and so forth, because that can easily detect and the information can be stolen. For instance, there is an encryption method that you can use, considering that we don't have what the Dr. Wanya is talking about here in Zimbabwe. And we might talk about 100 years for it to actually happen in Zimbabwe. But what do I do? Because I have to operate as a journalist on a daily basis. It is now my prerogative to secure information that I get from the sources. So I should actually take the first step to secure that information. You can encrypt the phone to such an extent that if that phone gets into the wrong hands, it explodes. This phone, it will explode if you want to open it. You can encrypt that laptop to such an extent that if somebody wants to open that document, encrypting files, yes you can, maybe because you be able to forget and don't know how to open, but you can encrypt the hard drive. Then the password to the hard drive stays in South Africa with somebody else, and you don't even know it. Only when there's a problem, when like what happened at the source, then the police or whoever want to open the hard drive, then they are unable to open anything, then it crashes, blah, nothing, they don't get anything. My only worry is we are here at the media center, we are not operating in the media room, like the Source or Herald or whatever. There's a server. We send emails, we receive emails through our laptops, computers and so forth. It passes through a certain gadget, which the media center owns. If that security is not there at the media center, despite the fact that I've secured my laptop, my phone, they can still access that information from the server, from the media center. So that's my only worry. But at the end of the day, if you really want to be professional in the modern day, encrypt the address.
That's a very important point.
Just to dispel his fears. At the media center, we don't have data servers. In communication is going direct. You might be worried about ZO, which is a division of Econet.
Wow.
That is our provider. We use routers only here. I think if you go in that room, you find that there is only physical routers, which do not keep your information for more than 3 seconds.
Yes. Is there anyone with another question? Because unfortunately our panelists have to rush, but yeah, I'll take one and then one.
Mine is a comment that can also be made to the question. Let's say we were aware of the contents or the information contained in the so-called stolen document. Was this case going to be handled differently than the courts? For example, if the information are related to an act of corruption, and you're looking at weighing the greatest impact or yes, the effect of releasing such information, trying to protect the client, the information holder, and then the right to freedom of information in the media. Unfortunately, we can't get what was in the document, since he said we can't comment. But he was going to help us to analyze the situation and the possibilities, and also understand the reaction that we're taking. Because the nature of information itself actually contributes to some of the justified.
This is to say that if Econet had challenged the contents of the story, it would have been a very different case, because the source would have come to defend themselves in terms of that story. But it would have taken a different. I'm sure they would not even have gone ex parte on that, because the issue of alleging stolen allows them to achieve that. But it's an issue of content. It's totally different, because the source has to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Now we go back to even the ethics that they need to defend that story.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's quite important that the manner now from this expertise, we are looking at many other things like there's a constitution. The constitution has nothing to do with this. Content, because we're just trying to explore and looking at what the judge would have been thinking when he passed that order. But I want to mention something he mentions in terms of encrypting. You are going to notice your tabloids are going to be writing a lot, like they are already doing, from your WhatsApps. All of you have passwords to your phones. Is it true? Yes, it's true. Most of your phones, when they break down, when they become blank, where do you take them? To the guy who fixes it. He asks you, what is your password? You give him, because you want him to fix the phone. Or not, the organs are 5 boyfriends, one serious, 2 non-serious, the other one, whatever. But it's an issue of this. But even someone who came to lodge a complaint with us on a story says they never gave them their password. But they know, actually, HMH was selling the stories. So our first know that number 40, that's their business now. I don't know how to use it for them. They go to your WhatsApp and they just copy all your WhatsApp to their phones. Then they take to the out and say, from this communication, they are a serious boyfriend. Or for never as a man. That's what they defend. Because he is angry, issues of emotions and passion. He's very angry. He comes. He says, they want you to set a trap, they make idiots of you when he's quarreling with you, he's beating with you, they're taking pictures and publish you. It's just a simple case of failing to secure your information. But all of you say, I have a password to my phone. That's easily bypassed. Easily.
Okay. Mine is on a bit unrelated issue around Econet also being bullied by government now. Around infrastructure sharing. Is the media going to become biased because they've been bullied by this incident?
I think the media should not be. The way the news they reported it was very, very fair. It's now government threatening Econet. You know, I thought if I were to a sub-editor and I took part in that demonstration on Friday, I was going to have a different. I don't know how you put that in English. But government. But I think it was professional, very professional. Government threatens Econet, which is exactly what is happening. From that, you can't expect me to use my resources. Then after I've put, you start telling me I have to share with my competitor, who was not even serious about doing what I did. So,
I just wanted for a second to say that journalists in this whole stuff will have the last laugh. You know why? When Econet got its license, it was through the work of the Zimbabwe Independence, the Standards, doing some advocacy work for when the government did not want to give Econet the license. So Econet has a very short memory, or its work has a very short, limited parochial memory. Because it was the work of the independent press actually.
Yes.
The Standard, the 96, 97, the Standard, the independent, before even the daily Standards came, who were on a daily basis, writing the story of Econet versus the government. But also, on a long term, why the journalists will have the last laugh is because Econet is a threat not only to state competitors, but even to the state itself in terms of man and power. Now Econet gives money, the state borrows from Econet for it to, so that's why you see, Econet is not only a threat to the notice,
actually.
yeah,
That's what this.
To pay civil servants, they get 30 million some time ago. It's plus money.
That's
So Econet is better advised to be friendly to the media than friendly to the state.
the state. Yeah.
Because the state knows the power of Econet and it knows that Econet is a threat to other telecoms that are controlled by the state. So whoever is advising Econet, I think he has a brain of a rat. Because he got the agenda of the state. Just after last week, look at what the state is saying. Because they know the common enemy. With money, anyone can do anything. That's why the state feels that Econet is the enemy. So Econet wants to walk alone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.